Since the 17th century, the island nation of Japan has pursued a policy of seclusion, severely limiting foreign contact in an effort to preserve its traditions and identity. This policy was forcibly challenged in 1853 when Commodore Matthew Perry, acting under direct orders from American President Millard Fillmore, sailed an armed fleet into Uraga near the entrance to Japan's Edo Bay, and by mixture of threats and diplomacy demanded access. The impetus for Perry's mission was partly the need to secure increasing American commerce in the area, including things like large numbers of whaling ships off Japan's coast. There was also the growing pressure resulting from European nations' increasing monopolization of Asian coalfields. In short, the US didn't want to be left behind. On top of this, for some time up to this point, shipwrecked foreign sailors who found themselves landing in Japan were either executed or imprisoned. Perry was under orders to secure the release of anyone in the latter category. Further, like many a colonial power before them, America believed it had both a mission and a right to bring modernity and Christianity to perceived, so-called, backward nations. And so it was that Perry set sail, and fortuitously, at the time of his arrival, Tokugawa Ieyasu, Japan's ruling shogun, was incapacitated through illness. The resultant government indecision, together with the presence of formidable American firepower, led to a fateful decision. Perry was allowed to land at Kurihama. This period is often referred to as the opening of Japan. For better or worse, the country would never be the same again.
Just before we get back to Simon discussing how one random earthquake helped radically change the course of world history since, if you too are interested in changing the course of your life story via starting a business, side hustle, or creative project, or launching your creative project side hustle that turns into a business, which funny enough is how Today I Found Out started as a website all the way back in 2009, today's sponsor Squarespace is here to help you out. Squarespace is built for anyone who wants a professional, feature-rich online presence without needing to be a tech genius or a designer, and even if you are a tech genius who also is a designer, time is one of the most precious things we all have, so save a boatload of it via this platform. You start with one of their many stunning award-winning templates, and if you want something even more unique, their Blueprint AI can create a custom site tailored to your brand, style, and goals. No blank pages, no overthinking, just a polished professional website in minutes, also potentially helping you to reappropriate that college nickname of Minuteman. And because a great website is in much use if no one can find it, Squarespace takes care of the search engine optimization for you, from meta descriptions, page structure, to an auto-generated sitemap. It's all handled for you in the best way possible without you needing to worry about any of it, which is sort of a theme with every facet of this, quick and easy. College me and Squarespace had a lot in common, turns out. On top of that, Squarespace has built-in payment processing for subscriptions or one-time sales, and with Squarespace email campaigns, you can send beautiful automated emails that keep your audience engaged and drive sales. Whether you're promoting a new product, booking clients, or updating customers, you can do it all from one place without juggling different platforms or services. Plus, you can track everything real-time with Squarespace's built-in analytics. Get clean insights into your audience's sales and traffic so you know exactly what's working and where to focus your efforts. It's everything you need to grow, all in one powerful, easy-to-use platform. So don't just put your business out there, make it thrive. Head to squarespace.com/brainfood for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use offer code BRAINFOOD to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. As Leo Tolstoy once said before his own time on this spaceship we call Earth ended, there is only one time that is important. Now. It's the most important time because it's the only time we have any power. So don't wait to start that side hustle. Do it now and see how far you can go. You got this. Now let's get back to Simon discussing how an oft-forgotten early 20th century natural disaster helped put Japan on the path to World War II.
Fast forward to 1923, and we find the country at a crossroads. The port city of Yokohama, founded in 1859 as Japan's first foreign settlement, had grown to a cosmopolitan area of 500,000 souls. Entrepreneurs, traders, spies, and adventurers from all over the world found themselves drawn to the famed meeting point between East and West. The Japanese writer Junichi Chanazaki, who spent 2 years living in Yokohama, observed a cacophony of, to quote, florists, tailors, milliners, bakers, cafes, or whatever decorates the windows, flowers, cakes, cloth, is a riot of loud Western colour. It is generally agreed that the overwhelming spirit of the time was one of optimism. With the opening of its doors, Japan ushered in a new era of excitement and opportunity. There remained, however, a significant number of conservatives who resented and feared the growing Western influence. They were fighting against the tide, but the situation was finely balanced and the stage was set for a cataclysmic chain of events. On Saturday, September 1st, 1923, at 11:58 a.m., an earthquake originating from a seismic fault 30 miles south of Tokyo struck Japan with a Richter scale measurement of 7.9. The Great Kanto Earthquake of 1923, as it came to be known, struck Yokohama with devastating force. It resulted in the immediate toppling of around 80% of the buildings in the city. Ellis Zacharias, an assistant to the U.S. Naval Attaché, stood among the crowds gathered at the port to see off the luxury steamship Empress of Australia when the quake hit. He later described the scene as, quote, "The smiles vanished, and for an appreciable instant everyone stood transfixed by the sound of unearthly thunder." Another surviving witness, American Otis Manchester Poole, who managed a trading firm, recalled, "Over everything had settled a thick white dust, and through the yellow fog of dust, still in the air, a copper-coloured sun shone upon this silent havoc in sickly reality." On board the Empress of Australia, the ship's captain, Samuel Robinson, watched in mountain horror as, quote, "the vessel shook all over in a most terrifying fashion, and also rocked very quickly and violently until it seemed as though the masts and funnel must carry away. 300 or 400 people were on the wharf. The earthquake happened. A number fell, or were thrown by the motion down the fissures as they opened and closed as the land waves passed, either disappearing into the water below or being crushed to death. A dense pall of dust rose up hundreds of feet above the town, and a terrible roar came from it." End quote. The ship, under Robinson's command, subsequently rescued hundreds of survivors and worked tirelessly to deliver vital supplies of fresh water. Another fortunate survivor, life assurance salesman W.D. Cameron, recounted his experience. To stand or walk was a physical impossibility. Those who did not crouch in terror the instant the shock began were thrown violently to the ground. The earth split and cracked in all directions, oozing water from some of the deeper fissures. Worse was to come, though, because the quake hit at a time when many people were preparing meals, so flames from stoves, together with ruptured gas pipes, quickly resulted in rampaging fires which spread uncontrollably through the primarily wooden dwellings, transforming the once bustling Yokohama into a cauldron of heat and smoke. High winds which buffeted the country at the time, due to a typhoon off the coast of Noto Peninsula, exacerbated the problem. Magazine editor Henry W. Kinney was struck by the sheer devastation, quoting him, "Yokohama, the city of almost 500,000 souls, had become a vast plain of fire. Here and there, a remnant of a building, a few shattered walls stood up like rocks above the expanse of flame, unrecognizable, for the city was gone." Further damage and terrible loss of life resulted from a 10-meter-high tsunami which hit within minutes. As Kinney further noted, "I saw a 30-foot sampan boat that had been lifted neatly on top of the roof of a prostrated house. Vast portions of the hills facing the ocean had slid into the sea." By the time the shockwave reached Tokyo, its power had diminished considerably, but the effect was still terrible. Although only a small fraction of buildings in the city collapsed due to the tremors, as with Yokohama, deadly fires spread at terrifying speed, eventually destroying 45% of the city. Firestorms raged, with many people dying as their feet became stuck in melting tarmac. One survivor recounted the ordeal. "We ran through cyclones of intense heat toward a school under construction. I watched flames shoot out from futons that people had slung over their backs. As hot as it was, a girl tried to bury herself in the sand. Before she died, she murmured, 'I'm so hot. Please give me water.' But I had none to give her." End quote. In Rakugan Honjo Hifukushu, formerly an army depot, around 38,000 people had taken shelter only to be engulfed in flames. Near the Sumida River, where 44,000 had gathered, another horrifying natural phenomenon manifested. Fire tornadoes are a relatively rare occurrence. Composed of flame and hot ash, they form when intense rising heat and sheer winds blowing strongly in different directions over a small area, meet, combining into a whirling vortex. As the air inside the vortex rushes upward, matter from the surrounding environment is sucked inside, including debris and combustible gases. Once created, fire tornadoes are notoriously difficult to contain. Incredibly, as Neil Lareau, professor and atmospheric scientist at the University of Nevada, notes, such a tornado, quote, "initiates its own weather system, helping to concentrate the rotation." End quote. In the case of the Great Kanto earthquake, the fire tornado, which formed near the Sumida River, soared to a dizzying height of 91 meters. Of the 44,000 people who had sought sanctuary in that area, only 300 survived. It was a full 3 days before the last of the fires died down, by which time nearly half of Tokyo had burned into nothing. All told, the Kanto quake, together with the subsequent tsunami and raging fires, accounted for 140,000 deaths and the virtual demolition of 2 major cities. The damage, however, was not confined to Tokyo and Yokohama. In the mountainous region of western Kanagawa Prefecture, hundreds were swept away by landslides, while in the village of Nebakawa, 100 passengers aboard a train were carried into the sea. Sadly, however, further terrors were still to ensue. Now, before we get into that, it's helpful to review a little more Japanese history. In 1910, following a long period of warfare and political pressure, Japan invaded Korea. And for reference here, Korea did not split into North and South Korea until 1945. Japan's reign was far from benign. In order to completely subjugate its new subjects, Korean culture was attacked on a massive scale. Students were forbidden from speaking Korean. Japanese became the enforced national language, and 20,000 Korean historical documents were destroyed. 100,000 Japanese families settled in the new land, and 725,000 Koreans were sent the other way, forced to work in mainland Japan and its colonies. Thousands of Korean women were inducted into military brothels, and the Korean royal palace was largely destroyed. Religion, too, was strictly controlled, with the natives made to worship the gods of Imperial Japan. During the immediate aftermath of the Kanto earthquake, an atmosphere of fear and distrust boiled over. Rumors spread just as swiftly as the flames, carrying tales of Korean immigrants poisoning water supplies, possessing bombs, and plotting to take advantage of the chaos to overthrow the Japanese government emerged. Whilst untrue, the perceived threat rattled the already destabilized population. Bands of Japanese scoured the ruins in search of Koreans and massacred them wherever they were discovered. Estimates put the ensuing death toll at between 6,000 and 8,000 souls. Crucially, amidst the turmoil, authorities took the opportunity to crack down on left-wing political dissidents. In the aftermath, post-disaster Tokyo was a scene of desolation. Of 2.26 million citizens, 1.38 million were declared homeless, 781,000 in Yokohama. The destruction affected every part of society, and the economic damage was considerable. 7,000 factories were destroyed, together with a large number of banking offices. The area's already inadequate social services provisions were decimated. 33.4 million square miles of Tokyo had been blasted out of existence. Martial law was swiftly declared, and Army and Navy personnel worked round the clock to repair infrastructure and deliver food, water, and medical aid. By the 24th of September, temporary housing had been erected for 150,000 refugees. One foreign correspondent surmised that, quote, "It may take decades for Tokyo to rise from the ashes of its former prosperity and importance." General Yamanashi, in charge of the relief, observed that it took 10 days to restore some sort of order and calm to the region. International help led by the United States was not long in arriving. President Calvin Coolidge oversaw the dispatch of dozens of warships carrying food, gasoline, and bedding. Tragically, the mood of mutual goodwill was not to last long. Many Japanese expressed resentment toward the need for Western help, with the US in return labeling Japan ungrateful. Then came a significant turning point. In the following days, leading Japanese figures interpreted the Kanto earthquake as a rebuke and a warning. As scholar J. Charles Schneckling writes, many Japanese elites, including bureaucrats and politicians, religious leaders, social commentators, and journalists, publicly described the earthquake as divine punishment. They sought to strengthen the legitimacy of their previously expressed concerns about and displeasure with what they saw in 1920s urban Japan, namely decadence, selfishness, extravagance, frivolity, individualism, and the pursuit of luxury. End quote. In essence, these commentators believed, or at least stated, that the quake had been sent from the gods to penalize Japan for allowing itself to be seduced by immoral Western lifestyles and values. The optimistic, outward-looking period symbolized by Yokohama appeared to be over. As Shankin further observes, quote, "The disaster nurtured a strong sense that Japan possessed an unparalleled opportunity, not only to rebuild Tokyo, but also to reconstruct the nation and its people. The 1923 calamity fostered a culture of catastrophe and reconstruction that amplified discourses of moral degeneracy and national renovation." End quote. Kenneth Parr of the University of Washington concurs that conservative elements, already dismayed by the drift towards democracy, viewed the disaster as both a sign and an opportunity to reset society. Parr states, quote, "After the earthquake, there's a measurable increase in right-wing patriotic groups in Japan that are really the groundwork of what is called Japanese fascism." Throughout human history, natural disasters have often been used by those in power, or those who desire power, as an opportunity to promote change. In the case of the Great Kanto earthquake, discussion is still ongoing regarding the extent to which the disaster swayed public opinion and political direction. It is arguable, though, that the quake occurred at a pivotal moment in Japanese history, when the country was struggling to choose a definitive path between complete acceptance of Western democracy and continued military expansion. Following the events of September 1st, 1923, Japan veered sharply toward the latter. Just 18 years later, this all culminated in the country entering World War II as an Axis power, fighting alongside Nazi Germany and the Kingdom of Italy. On the 7th of December 1941, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor dragged America into the global conflict. Ellis Zacharias, who had witnessed the Kanto earthquake firsthand from the wharf in Yokohama, was by then in command of his own battleship and would go on to see active combat during the conflict. On the 6th of August, 4 years later, the US deployed the world's first atomic bomb. 80,000 lives were lost in Hiroshima, with thousands more dying from radiation exposure. The age of the Cold War had begun. If it were not for a natural disaster 2 decades earlier, it's entirely possible that history would have taken a different course altogether. Thank you for watching.